Petworking is presented by Maya Strategy Group, a leading market research and strategy consulting firm, helping clients in the pet care and animal health industries navigate strategic challenges for almost 2 decades. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Petworking. I'm Peter Kenseth, Vice President and Partner at Maya Strategy Group, and I'm here with you today with Mark Bordo, CEO of Vetster, one of the leading telehealth platforms in the industry, Televet. We've done a lot of episodes on Televet here at Petworking. You know, we're a big champion of what telehealth and Televet, telemedicine, whatever term you want to use, can bring to the industry, the benefits that it offers to pet parents, the benefits that it offers to veterinarians from a career diversity and means of providing support and reducing burnout, which we're, always focused on here. We big champions of mental health, vet relief, and preventing veterinary burnout. And I think telehealth, telemedicine, televet is critical to that paradigm. Super happy to have Mark on. I first became acquainted with Vetster about 4 years ago. I think it was December 2021 at what is now Pet Connect, which had a great time out in LA last year. But in 2021, it was the Pet Care Innovation Summit in Boston. And I became familiar with Vetster then. Mark had founded the company probably a year or so prior. But I'll let him tell you a little bit more about the genesis of the company, his background and what led him to co-found Vetster. So without any further ado, Mark, thanks so much for joining us and welcome to Petworking.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so nice to be here. What a great platform. Congratulations on everything you've built and just happy to be a part of it. So thanks for giving us the chance to share the Vetster story.
Yeah, no, I think it's one of those things. Everybody has their own take on Televet, on telehealth. So I'm curious to hear. Looking through your background, you hadn't. A lot of people. We see on the pet nutrition side of things a lot where people have an experience with their dog or cat and come up with a new idea for pet nutrition, and they start a pet food company because of the experience that they had with their own dog or cat. But you don't so often see people entering into the vet tech, pet tech space without a background in pet previously. And looking back through your career history, I'd be curious
How I got here. Yeah.
what was the light bulb moment that led you to Vetster?
And there was absolutely one. First, I would say I have a ton of experience in the pet space because I've had a dog for almost 50 years. Not the same dog, but a dog for almost 50 years. But my experience is really in marketplace technology. But I was thinking about human telemedicine and I was looking into that space. It was really resonating with me and I was trying to understand it more. And, it was getting very crowded even back then. And that light bulb moment that we were referring to was really quite simple. It was my dog, Riley, at the time. She's since passed away, but she was a 16-year-old cockapoo. She needed a vet appointment. And I'm someone who spends a lot of time at the office and couldn't get her to that vet appointment. Riley, at the time, considered me to be her human. And I felt really badly that I wasn't the one able to take her those appointments. And literally, that was the connection. And I started thinking, well, why can't I take my pet to the veterinarian the same way that we're starting to go to doctors? And I was like, okay, if I can apply that entire marketplace technology thought process to maybe a new field and now start thinking about how I can connect veterinarians with pet owners, well, that was the genesis of Vetster. And obviously not to rent homes, but for amazing telemedicine experience and overall health experiences, that's how I arrived at Vetster. So that's sort of how that all got connected. But that light bulb moment was really, I owe it to my old pooch, Riley.
Yeah, well, I guess it's not that different from what we see in the pet nutrition side of things. It's very much inspired by a personal experience. But no, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. I see so many benefits to telehealth, televet. We've had episodes with Frank DeCecco of DVM6. We had Chewy do an episode with us after they did their millionth vet visit. And I think it's becoming increasingly, more and more accepted. And, it's no surprise, right? I mean, you talked about, we do a lot of our own medical appointments via telehealth now. Unless you need to get blood drawn or a test done, you know, you can talk to your doctor just as easily over a Zoom call or a telehealth platform as you can, you know, going to the office, sitting in the waiting room, and then, walking into an exam room. Other than taking your blood pressure, and getting your vital signs, there's not much that you're missing out on in that experience. And I look at it, we see so much in terms of access to care and people not taking advantage of, veterinary care when it is available to them. I mean, say nothing of the veterinary deserts that exist in the US and in Canada, where there may not be a vet within 4 hours of where you live. I think telemedicine is a huge, huge resource for people in those situations, but it's also, from a convenience standpoint, I think the statistics are like 40 or 50% of pets don't even make it to the vet once a year. And if you lower that barrier of, inconvenience and give them a telehealth option, I think we're going to see more and more people who are, at least consulting with a vet about a potential concern that they might have with their animal, or they, see telehealth as a more cost-effective option. You don't necessarily have to, worry about an exam fee to ask a quick question of, is this something I should be concerned about? On the other side, I think it gives veterinarians a hugely more diverse opportunity in terms of career path, right? You don't have to be tied to the clinic and working long hours in a single clinic. You can travel, you can, take time off, and, it gives vets an opportunity to work remotely, which I think is a big contributor to reducing burnout, for vets who are getting older and, don't want to be on the floor, 40 hours a week in a clinic. It's a huge opportunity for them. And for vet techs, who, there's a lot of physical wear and tear that Texans are on a daily basis. And so if they can transition into more of a telehealth capacity, I think that's hugely beneficial for them. But all that being said, we've talked about, there's lots of different models, there's lots of different platforms. What did you see, when you launched Vetster? Did you kind of approach it from the standpoint of, there aren't enough televet services out there, so I'm going into kind of like a greenfield market and I'm going to define the space? Or were you looking at, what were your ideas that you saw then that make Vetster unique, and how has that evolved in the company's 5-year history?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with a lot of what you just said too, and I would add, technology is changing so rapidly. When we think about even what's possible and us getting together in a meeting like this in two completely different locations for a video call, that technology is not even that old. So, it's 5-ish years ago where we all started to become, working on Zoom and working remotely, and this whole notion of not actually being in the same physical location for work has grown dramatically over 5 years, and technology continues to improve to allow these types of meetings to be even better. And that is a continued driving force of Vetster. So when we looked at this space, it was really, we saw an opportunity to emulate what was happening on the human side. And it just made so much sense to me from that moment that we could take a human, go to the doctor and see a whole bunch of different things, from triage to diet, nutrition, to general concerns, to, maybe emotional concerns for human, and think about all of that as it relates to pet. And again, for me, it was instantly obvious. It was like the moment this was the moment I had that experience and we thought about this, it was, yes, absolutely. I can think of a million reasons I would like to speak to my vet about my dog who actually had kidney disease at the time, who had incredibly itchy skin, who was a senior dog with hearing and sight issues. There were a million reasons that I needed to reach out to my vet to give her a better quality of life at that stage. But I just never did because vets are busy, we're busy, hours are off, and time goes on and you do the best you can. Well, we thought about it in a way, what if we could provide super efficient, super accessible, and affordable care where you could ask all your questions instantly and have them answered, where you could go into a pet retail store and pick your food, not necessarily on the brand or the color of the bag, but the ingredients that are right for your pet because you've had and been educated by a licensed veterinary professional, RVT, or a DVM. And so all these types of things were coming up as we had a senior dog that I was looking at. And then when I coupled it with the marketplace experience that I had, I thought, okay, this is how we could do this at scale and solve a bunch of different supply issues in there in terms of making sure that we had coverage for veterinarians in every state, in every province, and making sure that we could do this around the clock. So that's sort of how I thought about it. For me, based on the experience I had in vacation rentals, the model evolved from there. It was very, much part of the experience of the last 20 years that I had working in the space, plus just trying to care for this senior pet that brought up a lot of the initial thoughts around Vetster. Then you pass it to an amazing team with way better people than myself and, incredible innovative thinking and incredible product people. And we end up with the medical product that we have here today. And I think the team has just done an outstanding job of building this from that initial kernel of an idea to, where it sits today.
Yeah. Now, the company's headquartered in Toronto, Canada. And I don't know how when we were chatting earlier, I didn't mention my favorite band is the Tragically Hip. So I assume as a Toronto based company, you guys have a lot of love for them as well. And throw that shout out there. Yeah, rest in peace, Gord. I miss that guy. It's been a long 10 years. But anyways, where I was going with that was you mentioned every state, every province. How did you manage the rollout of, founding the company in Canada? Did you roll out Canada first and then migrate into the US? What was that like? And, how did you manage the different regulatory environments between the two countries? Because,
Yeah.
obviously vet care is a little different in Canada than it is in the US.
Yeah, I mean, based on the model that I loosely described before, it made a lot more sense for us to look at the US before Canada. So marketplace in general is one of the biggest hurdles is around population density. And for a marketplace to work, you have to have both sides of the marketplace, with a lot of scale. And so just based on population alone and percentage of pet adoption, it was made a lot more sense for us to start in the US. So we actually rolled out in the US first and then in Canada second. And as far as regulations go, we've had a lot of help. We've had a lot of great industry professionals from day one guide a lot of our process, a lot of our education, a lot of our structure and rules and platform, ensuring that we are following every regulation in every state. And our sort of at the core of Vetster was a great deal of learning around VCPR regulation, veterinary practice. We are incredible advocates of veterinarians. And I think at one of the main cores of Vetster is we are here for our vets. We want to be the platform that they use, but we also advocate for them and want them to operate autonomously. We're not veterinarians. I'm not a veterinarian, clearly. And I don't want to act like a veterinarian. I don't want to make decisions for veterinarians. We want to allow veterinarians to practice the way they want within the bounds of their boards and their licenses. And so, yes, we provide all sorts of information to help them ensure that they are up to, speed on the latest developments, regulatory, but we definitely want our vets to feel autonomous in how they practice their medicine. They are the incredible doctors. We're the platform. So to answer your question again, yes, we started in the US. The US is our first market, and based on population continues to demand a lot of our resourcing. But we're very active at home here in Canada, nationwide as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And you mentioned VCPR. I think that's an important concept to illustrate for, anyone. We have a lot of industry-based followers here. I know folks also follow us for tips on responsible pet ownership, and I'm sure there's some pet parents who don't work in the industry that are listening as well. But just to kind of set the stage for everybody, VCPR is the veterinary client-patient relationship, right? And you can't have, in most states, you can't give actual medical advice or diagnosis. You can give advice, but you can't give diagnosis unless you have a previously established veterinary relationship with that pet. So, for a lot of companies that we've spoken to, they're more relegated to a teletriage type model, where they can answer some questions, but they can't say exactly what's happening with your pet without putting hands on it, so to speak. So it's a lot of people say, hey, Televet is a great resource for me to understand, okay, my dog ate a piece of chocolate, or uh how worried do I have to be? Should I be taking them to the vet? Is this amount based on the weight of my dog and this, and the symptoms they're exhibiting, is this something I need to go to the emergency vet for now, or should I continue to monitor and follow up with my vet tomorrow? Can you talk to us a little bit about, how you guys have? We've also talked to, Frank DeCecco has this interesting model where he contracts with individual vet clinics as a relief vet. And then with DVM6, he is able to kind of establish that VCPR because he's acting as a relief vet for the clinics that he contracts with. And so that affords them a little bit more leeway in the recommendations and diagnoses that they're able to make. Talk to us a little bit about Vetster and how you guys have approached VCPR. I know during COVID, a lot of states relaxed it because it was so difficult to get access to veterinarians. But now, we're 5 years post-pandemic, and that VCPR is sort of still getting reevaluated. Would love to hear your thoughts on where that's going and how it affects your model.
For sure. And so, when you think back, when I'm asked that question, I think back to the genesis of Vetster. We were well into our development and research before I heard those four letters. And we had to get up to speed very quickly on what VCPR regulation was. And I think it's something that here we think about on a daily basis, that it guides a lot of the structure behind the platform. I mentioned to you earlier that at the core of our beliefs is we're here for the veterinarians, and we want the veterinarians to practice safely and responsibly on Vetster, and we want them to be autonomous. You mentioned this earlier, that mental health issues in the industry is also something that is, quite a discussed challenge that veterinarians face in both countries. And so VCPR isn't a widely known or understood regulation. And if I'm in a region where the VCPR is not established and I'm not allowed to diagnose, you could have pet parents that could be pretty disappointed in the veterinarian when they show up to a telemedicine appointment and are not able to get a prescription simply because of regulation. And while that's not the fault of the veterinarian is practicing how they want within the guidelines of their board and of the regulation. and are following those guidelines. And so from day one, Vetster has created a really good technical solution for the VCPR. And literally, we have toggles on the platform that will have different communications for VCPR regions and different communications for non-VCPR friendly regions. And we do it so that, one, we can be in compliance, but two, that also we don't end up in situations like I just described. So if you're in a region where it is, not okay to have a diagnosis and a prescription from a veterinarian through telemedicine because a VCPR can't be established virtually, then the communications leading up to the appointment and during the appointment are all going to be very upfront about that. If the opposite is true, then it's different communications as well. So we've taken a great deal of care on the platform and used great technical solutions to make sure that both parties who are involved in that appointment know exactly what they're getting into and what the rules of that appointment are. The platform is very sophisticated from a regulatory side, is fluid through regulatory side. So as regulations change, our platform can change with it very quickly. But it is really, one of the main drivers of different types of communication on our platform. And again, we put the veterinarians in, I keep using this word, we want them to feel autonomous. They are the doctors. We just want to provide them with the right tooling to allow them to run their appointments as efficiently as possible. And then during these appointments, we want both parties to have amazing experiences. And so we don't want disappointment on either side when VCPR could prevent a certain outcome of an appointment.
Do you have different rates for VCPR regions versus non-VCPR regions, or?
No, we don't. Just different communications so that the expectations are set ahead of time.
Okay. And now when you're contracting with veterinarians or recruiting veterinarians to the platform, are you doing this on a basis of this is a extension of their practice and that they're now able to offer telehealth through their practice, or are you are you marketing it as you are a veterinarian that could serve our clients on Vetster? Talk us through that a little.
Yeah, there's lots of different ways that veterinarians can work with Vetster. Clinics can work with Vetster directly. We can integrate and serve as an amazing resource for after-hours care, for weekend care. The past Memorial Day holiday is a good example of that, where Vetster is open 24/7, and if you have staffing issues, Vetster can be there. So we have lots of great programs for clinics to connect directly. And then, veterinarians are able to register on their own through Vetster. And again, as autonomous agents on Vetster that are contractors on Vetster, the veterinarians are there setting their own rates, setting their own schedules, and providing Vetster with as much time as they want to dedicate on a daily or weekly basis. But really, they're their own bosses and running their own shows on Vetster. So they can connect individually that way, or they can connect as a clinic group on Vetster.
So you are marketing it to clinics directly as sort of a relief platform or after hours care, or you can manage, if your practice wants to offer telehealth so that you can focus on, your in-clinic appointments during the day and, potentially see more clients, here's an option to offer, televet appointments to your client base through the clinic. And then people can also independently come to Vetster to say, independent of, having an established veterinarian, or maybe they're traveling and they're on the road, and they can access independent vets who are contracting with you.
Completely correct. Yeah, there's lots of different cohorts of veterinarians for different reasons that would subscribe and sign up on their own for Vetster and join. But yes, I mean, we work with clinics, we work with veterinarians. I think it's probably an important time to mention, we've always felt from the beginning of Vetster, and still feel very strongly today, we are not at all here to compete with clinics. I like to say that I love my brick and mortar. I have a 2-year-old Bernedoodle now, which we can talk about what it was like working with Vetster from the senior dog that I had all the way through her kidney disease, right now to a restart with a puppy, and how important it was to be able to have someone to speak to about, the first month, 2 months, 6 months when Bailey was at home and trying to sort out what it's like, adopting a new puppy. There were lots of use cases for telehealth in that case for Bailey. But yes, my brick and mortar veterinarian who's looked after my dogs for, I guess, 15 plus years, knows exactly what I do for a living and is a huge champion of ours. And it's, again, we believe, I think what makes us non-competitive with clinics is our belief in continuity of care. Vetster makes it so easy for appointments that happen on Vetster to each appointment has a medical record attached to it. You can download that medical record, send it right back to your clinic in one click, or do the reverse and upload your own medical records right into Vetster so that when a vet is on Vetster, they have a history of the animal. We think it's really important that we keep that continuity of care. So, yes, we work with clinics. We love our clinics, and we are, very much here to assist the clinics. We are not at all a competitor to clinics that's looking to take 1 hour of work away from any of their veterinarians or take one customer appointment away from them. We're here when pet owners don't necessarily need to be in clinic.
Yeah, or don't have time to get to the clinic, or maybe it's
Exactly.
after hours, and they're not sure if it's an emergency, or I there are so I often say, my I've consulted in the pet care and animal health space since 2009, but Peony's the first dog I've ever had, and I adopted her in 2017. And as a first time, dog owner, I was called, it was a lifesaver that my pet insurance came with, access to a telemedicine provider. And, and it was just teletriage, but like just having somebody that I could call up that was a veterinary professional that could answer a question, whether it was something that she had eaten, or, she's exhibiting this behavior. Should I be concerned? For good or for bad, I've experienced a lot of the veterinary ecosystem firsthand through Peony. But I brought consulting knowledge to to dog ownership, and so I knew a lot of, from a business perspective. I'd walk into the clinic, and I'd see all the vendors that I knew, and um but I mean, she was incorrectly diagnosed as being heartworm negative when we adopted her. The microflaria hadn't developed, thank God. She was exhibiting, she pulled the groin muscle, and they did a snap test and caught the heartworm, but we went through that. She's had melanoma. She's definitely, gotten her mileage out of the pet insurance that we have. But
It's There's a simple question I always ask dog owners, even experienced dog owners, and what is your plan tonight? It's 3 o'clock on the East Coast here almost. So what is your plan tonight in 3 hours if your animal's in distress? My plan is I'm walking around with a vet on my phone on the Vetster app, and I have no concern. I know that here in Ontario, I have the ability to establish a virtual VCPR. I know that my dog can get diagnosed. I know that I can get medicine delivered to my door. I feel very comfortable in how I would approach any situation that doesn't need a clinic that arises tonight. We just had a Memorial Day long weekend. What's your plan if your clinic's closed or if you can't get to your veterinarian? And telemedicine and telehealth provide such an amazing option. And as a pet owner, it's a crucial app to have on your phone, to have the access to veterinarians, licensed veterinarians in your home state. These are the same veterinarians that you're seeing when you go to your clinic. These are no different. These are the exact same people, and they're here and ready to help when you're in need. And technology has allowed us to have such a great solution for it that it is my go-to solution before I think, okay, I've got to race down to an emergency and maybe clog up the system there for something that didn't need to be there.
yeah, no, I mean, it's and it's what's great is that, if you can, I think some models that rely on teletriage, you know, oftentimes they'll have to default to recommending that you go to the vet or go to the emergency vet because they can't, diagnose. They can't, and I don't know what percentage of your visits you would say, end with a recommendation to actually go to a physical clinic. Um, but it's such good peace of mind. Like you said, having that in your pocket as a first line of defense, right? If they need to be seen, they need to be seen.
But it's an interesting thought, right? It's when you walk into your clinic and there's something wrong with your dog or cat, or any animal. I should mention Vetster treats actually 20 different species of animals on the platform. So bunny
No
rabbit
kidding.
and reptiles and horses and birds. It doesn't just have to be dogs and cats. You can find a
Oh, so you,
specific.
you go horses and large animal as well as small animal, huh?
Absolutely. You can find a specialist that takes care of those animals. But when you walk into the clinic, you're not walking in saying, I'm definitely walking out of here with a prescription and I'm here to get a prescription to fix whatever's ailing my dog. You're here to get the animal treated. And these doctors are amazing, educated doctors that don't necessarily always have to prescribe. And there's often many different solutions that they can provide these pet parents with. And so the idea of something's wrong with my animal, I need medicine, I need a prescription for sure. It's not what happens on Vetster all the time. It's not what happens when you go to a clinic. So even, in areas where or in cases where you're not prescribing, that doesn't mean the case can't get resolved. That means there could be many different solutions for that case. That may mean we look at your diet and nutrition and say, well, your dog has allergies. Have you thought about changing the food? What ingredients are you using? Have you thought about the treats you're feeding the dog? And maybe there's ingredients in the treats you're feeding your dog that actually are contradicting the food you're giving your dog. So, there's lots of different conversations that can be had between a licensed veterinarian and a pet owner that don't necessarily need to involve prescribing as well. It's not necessarily the top of mind thing that everybody thinks about when they walk through the doors of a clinic.
No, no. I mean, it, it yeah, I find very, for as many, issues that Peony has had, very few of them ended up being solved by medicine. Sometimes it's a surgical intervention, having her melanoma removed. Heartworm, obviously, that was a challenge to get through, but we did. We caught it early enough, luckily. Um, but yeah, I mean, ha it is that expertise. If you've seen enough cases, you may not have to have your hands on the pet to diagnose or to recommend a solution. Um, you know, eh,
You're also post when your dog was going through some of those things and you'd had the operation post that,
mhm.
right? Who do you talk to about all the care when that animal comes home? And like, oh, is this normal? Is that normal? Should this be healing that way? The bandage came off, like all these different types of things. Like, who are you asking those questions to? Because often the surgeon in that case, you may not be able to get in touch with that quickly.
Right. No, if it's after hours, it's hard.
The
And
follow-up
yeah,
has been
after that surgery, she hated the cone, and kept like getting stuck in every doorway. And I did call my televet provider for that, and they recommended going down and getting a soft like donut cone, and that worked well. And it's simple things like that, that sure you can, with the internet is incredibly powerful, and Google can offer some good suggestions, but if you can talk to a medical professional, a licensed veterinarian. And I meant to ask, is it exclusively veterinarians on the platform, Mark, or do you have vet techs on as well? Or um
Yeah, we have Vetster employs in Ontario and Canada a number of vet techs, and the vet techs actually man a really operate a really great product, which is essentially a live chat feature for our subscribers, which allows them to text in and speak to one of these RVTs about anything on the triage side or telehealth side or nutrition, diet, even questions about end of life and concerns about how does that work. And, when I was mentioning my new puppy, I had lots of questions about behavior and teething questions and, all of those things. Proud to say vet techs are amazing at answering a lot of those questions and making you feel very comfortable and giving you solutions within their spectrum. So yes, we have a group of incredible techs that manage our live chat feature, our instant live chat around the clock. And then when you get into our marketplace and our booking appointments, those are with doctors and TVMs.
Okay, great. And so all of your vet techs are based in Toronto, but they service the lab chat across Canada and the US?
Correct, yeah.
Cool. That's great. That's great. And I know you mentioned prescriptions a lot. Do you guys do any kind of partnership for prescription fulfillment, or is that just sent to, the your client's pharmacy of choice, or how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. There are so many great fulfillment partner options, and many more continue to come out. Even recently, there's a few. So we offer a few different partners that we work with on the fulfillment side, and one of the really nice things about having all this optionality from a pet parent perspective is it gives you a lot of choice on how you want your medication, where you want your medication, how fast you want your medication. So we tend to now offer a host of options for pet parents to select from, all very seamless and built into an elegant platform of how it's delivered. But yeah, we leave it in the pet parents' hands to select where they want their medication from. And we have a number of partners that we're working with.
That's cool. That's great. Um, in terms of, you mentioned the subscription model. Do you do a pay per visit, or is it subscription exclusive and that gets you as many visits as you want? Talk to us about the how that's structured.
Yeah, so there's two different approaches we take to it. So if you're looking for one appointment and have want to buy one visit, you're able to come onto the platform, pay for that single visit, meet with a veterinarian, and get your medical record, and just pay for that one single one. Or we offer a subscription, which allows you up to 4 appointments annually, plus unlimited care from our RVTs. So it's a really affordable and great, efficient way to get annual care for your pet. But
That's great.
those are two different ways that we generally work with it.
That's awesome. Now, what would you say, how it, typical use case, what do you see, in terms of your visits? Is it mostly people using this as like their primary option for veterinary care? Is it people who are using it because it's after hours and their vet is closed? How would you break down the typical use case?
I think the Vetster app is so important as a pet owner. There are so many situations that arise on a weekly or even in a lot of cases on a daily basis where the Vetster app can be so supportive to managing and encouraging proper pet health. Years ago, before Vetster, if something was wrong with your animal, as pet parents, I would be guilty of this. You hope it goes away and you leave it for a couple of days because getting to the vet is sometimes not that accessible, easy, affordable. Life happens, kids, work, all of those different kinds of things, and it can be a challenge. But today, with the app, it's so easy to text in and ask some triage questions or to book an appointment. As we sit here right now after this video call, we could book an appointment with Vetster and not leave the office and get some health benefits for our pets. So I look at it and I think the use cases are extensive, and it starts from the minute you adopt, let's say your cat or dog, and all the way up through end of life and then restart. I even talk to people about using the Vetster app before you adopt a pet to help you pick the right pet, because why not hear from the professionals about what's involved with care and how you're going to care and what are the costs with care and what do you need to set up your home with, or is this the right breed? Like, there's a lot of different questions that now you can access a veterinary professional, doctor or RVT, where you can get real professional, experienced, licensed guidance from on managing pet care. So there's a whole host of use cases around that, to everyday use cases that we see that could be anything around, gastro issues, which, oh, I'm concerned because, I just saw this come out of my animal, or, they just ate this and I'm concerned and I need some support, or I need to just get some comfort, or, I'm noticing that, my animal's not eating the way they normally do, or drinking the way they do, or they're scratching at their ear, and we can get into more acute issues of use cases. So I think there's a very wide spectrum of use cases, from very, questions and general concerns all the way right up to very acute concerns, and how you can manage your pet. One thing we do on the platform is you can upload just about anything to the platform to help the veterinarians with creating the right solution and program for your pet. So when I say anything, it's videos, it's photos, it's blood work, it's data, it's diagnostics, it's your medical records and any of the medicines that you've taken. So, when the vet is able to take the full picture of what's been going on with your animal, they can obviously have a better chance of making an even more insightful solution for you. So we make it very easy to upload all of that information. And the more information you have about your pet, the more sophisticated, I guess, the diagnosis or the outcome can be. But we see everything from managing cancer to managing, new pets with spay and neuter issues, all, the full spectrum. What you won't see is things like, my dog jumped off the couch and broke their leg. Can you help me fix that? Those
Yeah,
things.
yeah, right.
And I would be the first person to tell you that if your animal is in severe distress, then you should be heading immediately to a hospital and you shouldn't be on telemedicine. That's not what we're here for. We're here for a lot of, before that happens. But if something were wrong with Bailey and Bailey wasn't breathing properly or had severe distress, I would be on my way to the hospital. I would not think that was the correct use case for telemedicine. But unless I feel like there's a lot of distress right there, I mean, telemedicine is always my first stop.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you mentioned, the ability to upload and share data. One of the things I think is really going to, you know, drive the next frontier in televet and telemedicine, is the use of at-home diagnostics and wearables. I wear a smartwatch, and I always say this, but like I'm shocked that my medical care providers aren't more interested in my smartwatch data. Like, you have my sleep data, you have my heart rate, you have these patterns that now go back over like years, and they never ask. Um, we did an episode probably a year and a half ago at this point, with a company called Invoxia, and Peony, since then, or actually a little bit before then, we were trying it out. She wears a wearable on her collar, and it not only does GPS and helps me track her down if she gets lost, but it tracks her respiratory rate, her heart rate. It gives a little you know doggy EKG, a heart signature thing, and can detect AFib if she has it. And it's I have to admit, when the concept was first presented to me, I was a little skeptical. I was like, I don't need anything more, in terms of a tracker than to know where she is. That's why she wears it. You know, she got lost once for 30 minutes, and it was one of the longest 30-minute periods of my life. And after that, I said, I'm never, not having a GPS tracker on her again. So I was a little skeptical as to, like, okay, what are the benefits of me knowing what her heart rate and respiratory rate are? But as I thought about it, and I talked with the then CEO of Invoxia, you have a baseline, right? If you have, that data and that her respiratory rate's always, 13, breaths per minute. And her heart rate is 65, and if you see significant deviations from those numbers, it's a link to kind of say, oh, maybe, we should be bringing this up and talking about this with a vet. We also had a company called Maven Pet on, and they do a similar wearable, but they kind of take the model where they partner with clinics, and if the AI that they have behind their wearable picks up irregularities in the pet's action, they will actually prompt a scheduled visit with the vet. And I guess I'm just curious, Mark, have you guys explored, and we're seeing increasingly more, at-home diagnostics come out. We had Jaime Paris and on with his NovaCare, which is a saliva-based biomarker kind of thing. Have you guys explored partnerships with wearables or at-home diagnostics that could interface with the Vetster platform and call attention to people of like, hey, you should probably get to the vet, or do you want to book an appointment, or just uploading it to their medical record automatically?
Yeah, so absolutely, and have a few partnerships in flight right now. In that respect, we even have in our catalogs give our veterinarians the opportunity to send them directly from the appointments so that they can get more diagnostic information from these at-home wearables. I think the more at-home diagnostics that are available for pet owners, the better we can do with pet telemedicine. We are all about providing more data in these appointments so that we can give the veterinarians as much information as possible to work on these animals. And so, yes, of course, we are in full support and partnership with a few at-home diagnostic products and companies. We encourage more to join Vetster. We encourage everybody to upload that data into their Vetster pet account so that it can be monitored. And it's a great part of the telemedicine industry. I think why we play so nicely with it is, okay, you're watching your data and you're seeing from the trackers on your dog what their conditions are. Well, Vetster really is quick to answer that question. Now what? So something is wrong, something is off, and you can click a quick button if you're integrated with Vetster to say, okay, I need to speak to a vet about this, and they can see the data. So instead of just having the information, we're also able to take that information and say, here's your solution at the same time. And so I think that telemedicine and Vetster plays very nicely with the whole at-home diagnostic community.
Yeah. You mentioned you've got partnerships in flight. Are those still in development, or can you talk about the partnerships that you have?
There's several of them. And, it is, again, we've always been big champions of the at-home diagnostic. So without leaving anyone out, I'd rather, not name them by name, but there's many of them that we partner with. There's many that are part of our flows that allow veterinarians to basically quickly send, those kits to at home to pet parents so that we can work with them. But it's always been part of our systems, and we encourage more, and we'll continue to add more as we can.
That's great. That's great. Do you see at any point in time, having a wearable as part of the Vetster package, so that it's interfaced with the app and you're getting real time biomarker data, heart rate, respiratory rate, things like that?
I think we don't want to compete with that segment. We want to be here as a platform to allow the veterinarians to really run and operate and manage pet health. And we want to continue to provide great platform, great tooling for pet parents to manage and track their pet's health. And that's really where our focus is. in terms of any hardware or things like that, that's not where our expertise is. So I don't know that we're going to head down that road anytime soon, but we certainly would love those companies to continue to integrate with Vetster.
Very cool. Mark, I'd be curious to know, of the vets that you contract with, how many of them is this like a full-time gig for? How many of them are doing it sort of as a way to earn additional money? What percentage would you say is like, gig economy? I'm going to pick up some extra shifts and do some work on Vetster versus I'm going to be a digital nomad veterinarian and travel all over and take telehealth appointments. Um,
It's a real mix, and it's always changing. You have the ability to provide as many hours as you like to Vetster. What's interesting about the platform is when you set up an account as a veterinarian on Vetster, you're able to set your own schedules and you're able to set your own rates for your appointments. Vetster is not dictating any of that. So you can change your schedule on a daily or weekly basis and provide as much or as little time on Vetster as you want. It's actually very intuitive and works within your scheduling. So if you only want to work Mondays to Fridays, but weekends off, you set those hours, or 5 to 9 p.m. and not during the day, you can do that as well. I would say the majority of workers are giving partial hours to Vetster in different segments, but there certainly are a cohort of veterinarians that provide more than just part-time and do this to just simply augment their current income. Some are making significant income through the work that they're doing on Vetster.
Very cool. And what percentage of your clients would you say you have more clients coming, as a individual subscriber on the Vetster platform, or more people accessing the platform because their Vetster is, you're contracting with a clinic and you're providing after hours care? How does that break down?
Yeah, definitely on the subscriber side for that one. This is an amazing app. This is, an incredible pet health app to have on your phone and to go download from the App Store right away. And I encourage every pet owner to have this so that you're set up and you're ready to go if you have any questions or if you're ever in need. But yeah, that would significantly skew towards pet owners subscribing to Vetster.
Sure. And I know we're getting that, to the end of our time here, Mark, but I always like to, when we have, people who are experts in the field, like yourself, where, we've seen obviously COVID was sort of that, black swan event that you know, really pushed telemedicine and televet to the forefront and made it more real. And, like you said, um, it really encouraged the adoption of video conferencing in general. I think back to pre-COVID, and I conducted a lot of my sales meetings and client readouts, just via telephone, and everybody would have a copy of the document open on their computer, and it would just be voice and speaking to the image that everybody was looking at. We're here five years later, and you and I are, recording a podcast on Zoom, talking to each other, and you know, now we have, and in the last couple of years, we've had huge breakthroughs with AI, which I have to imagine is going to have an influence on televet, in a profound sense, just from an ability to analyze. You might, I don't know how far we are away from having an agentic chatbot that can answer your questions about your pet's health, but um, where right now, I don't know that I've seen these statistics. Maybe you have. Like, what percentage of pet owners have used a telehealth service, and where do you see televet going in the next 5 years?
Great question. We're just scratching the surface. It is, if we were to sit down and look at the cases that happen all day long, every single day on Vetster, and to see the pets that we are saving, by we, the veterinarians, are saving, the healthcare that they are providing, the accessibility to healthcare that they are providing, and the stories that you hear on a daily basis, you would be asking me that question differently, saying, how come that this isn't a nationwide, universally accepted, deregulated environment? It is the really the wind in our sails for the people here at Vetster and the team we have here of why we come into work, and seeing the reviews and seeing the stories and hearing what we're doing on the platform and how important it is to pet healthcare and how bad access to pet healthcare is.
Yeah.
The ratio of veterinarians to pet parents is in crisis mode. It's completely out of proportion. So telemedicine
Yeah.
can come in and really help amplify care. And we see that every single day, every day. So it's taking its time over the last 5 years for the awareness and education around how effective telemedicine is to catch on a mainstream basis. Um, it's growing every day, it's growing. And every day with all these positive results, it's gaining momentum every day. I said it, a little while back, every pet parent should have the Vetster app on their phone. It is a must have for a pet parent so that you can provide amazing care for your pet. The traction for telemedicine and telehealth needs to grow over the next, you said 5 years, I'll give you 2 years. As regulations continue to change, that's part of it. But while regulations are changing, education needs to be increased. And it's one thing for regulations to change in a state like Florida, but if they're changing and no one understands what it means, or that you can go and seek help virtually, and that it's effective, and that it's licensed, and that your animal is going to be in safe hands, then we don't need to spend that much time on the regulations because we're missing all the animals that could get care. So my hope is that over the next couple of years, we're going to see mainstream adoption of pet telemedicine, pet health in clinics, outside of clinics. We're on a path there. It is moving in that direction. The data around the effectiveness of telehealth and telemedicine is extreme in terms of the positive nature of it and the positive outcomes. It's extreme is, even if I had a better word, I would give you a better word. But it's been overwhelmingly positive for 5+ years now. And we need to see continued change on the regulation side, and then continued activity on the education and awareness side, so that we can go and help as many pets as possible. From where I've seen this on a daily basis for the last 5 years, it is an unbelievable way to manage your pet health. And so many do it today. We just need that more spread virally so that we can help the mainstream pet owner. And I see that happening. So to answer your question, I see absolutely a tipping point coming soon where this is nationally accepted, where this is nationally regulated, that we can establish virtual VCPRs in every state and every province, and veterinarians have the chance to practice both virtually as well as in clinic, and have a whole hybrid lifestyle the way a lot of us like to work now. And that would be, where I see things going in not the far future, in the near term.
That's awesome. I would hope. I mean, I think it would make it such a huge difference. It benefits the pets. I mean, I'm not a cat owner, but everybody I know who owns a cat will tell you their cat does not like to go in their carrier. Their cat does not like to go to the vet. We just did an episode with Dr. Lisa Ristine of Hills and their World of the Cat report, and the statistics about cat, like, we talk about 40 to 50% of dogs not going to the vet. I think the statistic that we threw out is that 60% of cats have never even been to the vet. And you know, I know when Peony goes to the vet, you put her in an 8x8 room, and I don't blame her that she's nervous, and because when she, I try to bring her by our vet and just bring her in, put her on the scale and give her a treat. So she's, feels like, hey, this is a good place to go. This is a safe place to go. But more often than not, when she's going in that exam room, she's getting, a shot for a vaccine or she's gets blood, it's not a pleasant experience. And I would think like being able to observe a pet in their natural environment, if I could just sit here and, you know, show my vet peony on camera and, talk to her that, and she could get, the data off the wearable of, okay, this is her heart rate, this is her respiratory rate. Like you're probably going to get a much more accurate picture of what that pet's condition is. I know with some of the mobility stuff, she had a neurologic issue a few years ago, and I where every time she walked on gravel, she would lose control of her back legs. And I knew it was gonna, and one day she did it on the pavement, as opposed to the gravel path. But I knew it was coming on the gravel path, so I took a video, and my vet was able to send that off to her professor of who taught neurology at Purdue, and she was asking me if she could use it as like a case study for her class. But you know, I think pets can't vocalize the way we can, and if you're not giving that full picture, you talked about it with the data, but like you know the view and the videos and things like that, it's really hard for vets to get a complete picture. And so I think having this platform where you can upload it, it's huge. And then you talk about the accessibility side. I think that that solves so many issues, just from making more people get their pet to the vet. You catch conditions earlier, they don't spiral into things that are untreatable. That helps avoid veterinary burnout and compassion fatigue, because vets are able to treat, as opposed to seeing like, oh, if this animal had only come in 6 months earlier or a year earlier, we could have stopped this. And we'll be making, we've got a very exciting event in the works. We're putting the finishing touches on it behind the scenes, but I'm excited. We've got a big event coming up this fall, focused on addressing a key cause of compassion fatigue and veterinary burnout. So looking forward to making that announcement
Right.
soon. But I think telehealth and televet is such a big part of it, not only from a pet welfare perspective, responsible pet ownership perspective, but also from a veterinary well-being perspective. And the three all go together. So I think it's super cool what you're doing. And yeah, I would encourage it, go check out the Vetster app. I know you said the App Store, but I'm assuming it's available on Google Play too for us Android users. And yeah, Mark, thank you so much. This has been an awesome conversation, and I hope your prediction about where Televet is going is correct, because I think it's such an important piece of the toolkit, in animal health and responsible pet ownership.
Well, thank you. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here today, and great conversation. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, on behalf of Mark, everybody, I'm Peter Kenseth with Petworking. Thanks for taking the time to join us today, and we'll see you again soon. Take care.